Between 9500 and 5000 BCE, the retreat of the last ice age triggered violent climatic shifts across the globe. Frozen landscapes thawed, sea levels surged, and entire ecosystems were rewritten. For early human populations, this environmental chaos presented a stark binary: adapt to the rapidly changing biomes or face extinction. Western historical narratives often claim that the solutions to this crisis, specifically agriculture and complex social organization, were developed elsewhere and later imported into Africa by outsiders. The archaeological record proves otherwise. The African continent was undergoing its own extreme ecological transformations, forcing indigenous populations to engineer highly specialized methods of survival. The first major shift occurred across the Sahara. The world's largest hot desert blossomed into a habitable ecosystem of lakes, rivers, and rich vegetation. Further south, the shifting climate systems caused the fertile West African savannas to expand massively, creating vast new belts of arable land. Early human communities across the continent did not passively wait out these changes. In 3 distinct geographic zones, they independently domesticated plants and animals, initiating their own agricultural revolutions. The rise of farming was a deliberate, localized response to a shifting Earth. It was an entirely homegrown innovation, developed from deep environmental mastery. In the Northeast, Afro-Asian communities navigated the steep terrain of the southern Ethiopian highlands and the adjacent Nile regions, carving agricultural terraces directly into the mountainsides. Well before 15,000 BCE, these groups engineered heavy mortar and pestle stone tools to grind wild grasses and wetland sedges into fine flour. This allowed them to bake flat bread, securing a storable calorie source. This caloric stability drove a massive population boom. To sustain their numbers, these Afro-Asian groups began migrating, moving northward through the Nile Valley, across the Sinai, and into Southwest Asia. Upon reaching the Levant, they merged with local populations, transferring foraging and milling techniques to help establish the Natufian culture. Archaeology confirms this link, tracing the movement of Mushabian and Kebaran cultures as they merged into the foundational sedentary societies of the Near East. West of the highlands, the landscape transitions into the sweeping open plains, steppes, and lush riverbanks of the Middle Nile Basin, bordered by arid cliffs. Here, Nilo-Saharan populations developed agrarian communities governed by a complex spiritual philosophy. Their social structure centered on a concept known as Arum, a universal life force that demanded strict harmony between the community and the natural world. This map shows the massive expansion of Niger-Kordofanian language groups. We trace their migration across the West African savannas and into the Nuba Mountains. These branches formed vast, interconnected networks, allowing communities separated by thousands of miles to share innovations, crops, and trade. Long before modern political borders were artificially imposed, the African continent was closely woven together by these sophisticated webs of shared language and commerce. Further south and west, the terrain shifts into dense equatorial woodlands and arid desert plains. In these regions, societal advancement took a different form, proving that farming is not the sole metric for complex human organization. The Batwa in the central forests and the Khoisan in the southern deserts operated as highly specialized engineers of their respective ecosystems, achieving an unmatched sustainable harmony with extreme biomes. They developed localized technologies, like the Khoisan's meticulously crafted poisoned arrows for large game hunting, and organized their societies around complex spiritual practices, including annual trance-healing ceremonies. These communities established persistent, intergenerational meeting sites, recording their deep cosmological beliefs in vibrant red ochre art painted directly onto the stone. Societal complexity is often measured by a culture's ability to alter its environment. It is equally visible in a culture's ability to master a sustainable, enduring existence within a harsh landscape over thousands of years. When we look at the entire continent from a macro perspective, a logical question emerges. What is the result of combining these distinct regional breakthroughs? First, take the massive caloric surplus generated by the agricultural hearths, then layer in the formalized, complex spiritual traditions, and finally, wire those distinct groups together across continent-spanning networks of shared language and trade. When these 3 developments collided, the scale of human organization scaled with them. Agrarian surplus fed the labor required for construction, while trade networks and shared spiritual ideologies coordinated thousands of people to build these massive stone citadels. Constructing these urban centers required immense architectural engineering, visible in the sprawling, gravity-held dry stone walls and the precision of the interlocking masonry. Jado and Great Zimbabwe stand as the physical evidence of the continent's early agricultural hearths evolving into centralized political powers. These first stone cities established the administrative and economic foundations that would soon support the most powerful transcontinental empires in the ancient world.